everyone, Jess here, and today I'm joined with Willie Walsh. Thank you so much for taking the time to speak with me.
Thank you.
So, in March there were some developments with the EU Single European Sky. You've branded this as a failure. Can you illuminate which areas you think particularly fell short and how they're going to hamper the development of ATM moving forwards?
Yeah, I think when you look at these issues, it's always important to understand what were they aiming to do. So the ambition originally was a tenfold improvement in safety, 3-time improvement in the capacity of European airspace, a reduction in costs, and a 10% reduction in CO2. And quite honestly, it's failed on all those 4. So what we've got in the end is just a piece of paper where they will set up another group that will have an opinion on things but no influence. And it's very, very disappointing given the critical importance of all of those issues. So we're very disappointed, very critical of the politicians who have failed to seize the opportunity. A 10% reduction in CO2 from aviation in Europe would be a massive achievement. And to let that go is just not acceptable.
Absolutely, and yeah, like you say, this 10% emissions that was supposedly going to happen overnight, it's a huge loss to the industry. But when you've spoken about sustainability before, it sounds that 60% of the carbon reduction is going to come from sustainable aviation fuel. I think that's the correct prediction. How are you seeing challenges progress with this? Is there uptake there? Is it still issues with scalability? And are we going to need government intervention to facilitate this change?
Yeah, great question. So we've recently evaluated 14 different pathways that various organisations have identified to get to net zero in 2050. All of them highlight the importance of sustainable aviation fuel. The overall contribution varies, in some cases as high as 70%. So whichever way you look at this, sustainable aviation fuel is going to play an absolutely critical part to achieving net zero. We believe that governments have an important role in stimulating production of sustainable aviation fuel, because that's really the problem. There's huge demand for the product, even with the price differential, which is often up to 6 times what traditional jet kerosene costs. So the demand is there, but we're not seeing the supply. So I think it's very important that governments recognise the opportunity that this represents and to start stimulating additional production, as we've seen in the US, for example, where most of the investment is being made and most of the supply of sustainable aviation fuel is being produced.
Absolutely, and I think we're also seeing it in Singapore as well with mandates on sustainable aviation fuel. So it feels that the industry is progressing that way, but perhaps not quickly enough.
Yeah, some people have said the industry, airlines in other words, need to send a demand signal that will give suppliers confidence to invest in sustainable aviation fuel. My view is we've all identified that sustainable aviation fuel is critical. Airlines today are sourcing sustainable aviation fuel to fulfill the individual commitments that they've made. And I think it's very disappointing to see European airlines have to go to the US to source their SAF in the US to fulfill commitments that they've made in Europe. So I think the issue here is ensuring that we have the right balance between the incentivization that governments can help. So in the US it's tax breaks to incentivize investment in infrastructure and production. In Europe they've taken a slightly different approach, which is to mandate airlines to use it. Mandating somebody to use something that isn't available doesn't make sense. So I really do believe that the focus should be on incentivizing and stimulating greater production of supply.
And in this conversation already, we sort of touched on a few of the various ecosystem players. How do you propose we catalyse the mindset shift towards a more inclusive ecosystem? I'm thinking about government, suppliers, airlines.
Yeah, and your point is very important because we've got to bring everybody together here. Airlines will not get to net zero in 2050 on their own. They'll need the support of governments, they'll need the support of regulators, they'll need the support of OEMs, they'll need support. Everybody in the chain is going to have to play their part. And therefore there has to be a greater recognition of every single person involved in the supply chain of the industry, of the importance of their role in getting there. But particularly fuel suppliers. The traditional fuel suppliers who have made billions, hundreds of billions in profits of the industry over the years need to accelerate significantly their investment in the production of sustainable aviation fuel. And they're going to have to play a part because they can't sit back and say, well, we'll continue to provide dirty jet kerosene to you and look to somebody else to get the clean, sustainable aviation fuel. They're part of the problem. They've got to be part of the solution.
Absolutely. And how do you think events like Aerospace Tech Week help to drive meaningful change in the industry?
Well, I think what's great is at an event like this, you get different parts of the value chain in the same room, all talking to one another, and surprisingly often talking about the same goal and same issue, and it's understanding how we can work together. So it's fascinating, even talking to some of the startups here about what they're trying to do, which can assist the industry in the pathway to net zero in 2050. Generative AI, a lot of people are talking about that today. Investment in new technology, innovative technology that small startups are coming up with. So it's not just about the big players. And you get a real buzz when you come to an event like this, getting everybody in the same room, identifying solutions, identifying new ways of doing things. So I think it plays an important part.
Fantastic. Well, thank you for sharing your insights today.
Thank you.